Protecting sensitive data is more critical than ever before. But what happens when data breaches occur? The Data Breach Register serves as a centralized database where organizations are required to report incidents involving the unauthorized access, disclosure, or loss of personal information. Why organizations need a data breach register? Mandatory reporting. Organizations must promptly notify the Nigeria Data Protection Commission and affected individuals in the event of a data breach. This ensures swift action to mitigate risks and safeguard personal information. Detailed records. The register maintains detailed records of reported breaches, including the nature of the incident, the type of data compromised, and the remedial actions taken by the organization. Compliance and enforcement. Non-compliance with data breach reporting requirements can result in significant penalties and reputation damage for organizations. The register helps enforce regulatory standards and promotes a culture of data protection. Here is a step-by-step guide on how to use the data breach documentation register. About the organization. Fill the name of the organization. Fill the registration number issued by the Corporate Affairs Commission. Fill the location where the organization is physically situated or conducts its operations. Fill the official email address of the organization. From the list below, pick the most appropriate based on the nature of your core business activity. Data Protection Officer. Fill the name of the designated Data Protection Officer. Fill the email address of the Data Protection Officer. Fill the phone number of the Data Protection Officer. Fill the Data Protection Officer's acquired data protection privacy certifications. Details of data breach. A unique number that indicates where in the register a data breach is reported and documented. A unique identification number or code assigned to each documented data breach. Specify the exact date and time the data breach occurred if known. Specify the exact date and time the data breach was discovered. Provide the number of data subjects affected. If the number is not known, give an approximate number. Description of breach. Explain the process by which a security breach resulted in the unintentional or deliberate loss, alteration, disclosure, or access to personal data. Measures taken or to be taken. Did you inform all individuals affected? Indicate yes or no. List other regulators informed. When did you first notify the NDPC of the data breach? If yes, indicate the date and time. Remedial action. Kindly state the remedial action taken. To place an order, kindly visit dataprotectionacademy.com NG store or call 0816 82444.
Smartphone is about to run out of battery. Well, lucky you. Good thing you can charge your phone on the go. But hold on, that Instagram selfie or an urgent email might cost you a lot. IBM security experts say that cyber criminals use USB ports in airports, train stations, and other public places to steal personal data from your gadgets. They have no difficulty modifying USB ports by installing special software that steals the owner's personal data, including bank information. You might think that it's a bit paranoid, but cyber criminals are becoming more active, and this is no joke. In 2019, transport became the second priority for cyber criminals, right after financial organizations. Can you imagine that? USB chargers might be traveler-friendly and installed in public places for their convenience, but they're not necessarily safe. Caleb Barlow, Vice President of X-Force Threat Intelligence at IBM Security, says that travelers have always been vulnerable. Centuries ago, they were attacked by pirates, but nowadays, most of the thefts happen on a digital level. The thing is that smartphones receive data through the same USB port that they charge from. In 2016, Kaspersky Laboratory staff learned to install external software and viruses on smartphones using USB cables. The whole procedure only took them 3 minutes. Sure, the cybersecurity guru used their discovery to develop an antidote, but the ones when you plug the cable into a compromised outlet, you'll connect your smartphone or tablet to an external drive that launches the process of copying your data or installing a virus on it. They'll get access to all your personal information in no time. That includes your bank account, email, text messages, photos, and contacts. This technology is known as juice jacking. Another way they use to steal your data is called video jacking, which is also based on using a modified USB port. All the activity on the smartphone screen is recorded on video and allows the thieves to see what you type and what kind of info you look through. Sometimes they don't even bother to do anything to the port itself. They just leave a cable plugged in there. Barlow says that a bad guy probably wouldn't take the USB port apart in front of everybody, but he could just plug in his special cable there and wait at home in front of his laptop. A man passing by might see the cable, which matches his device, and just start charging it. And this is when the software crawls into your tablet or smartphone and copies something you'd rather keep private. Barlow compares using USB chargers left in public places to brushing your teeth with a toothbrush that you found on the road. You don't have the slightest idea who's used it and what for before you. Is there any reason for the owners of the latest Android and iPhones to worry? The best brains in the world are working on their security after all. After smartphone producers learned about juice jacking, they did add extra safety measures to their devices. Now iOS and Android ask for your approval to get connected to an external device. But if you're prone to agree to anything your smartphone offers without looking, that won't be much help. There's other risks too. If you've got an Android with an older operating system, or the USB debugging mode is switched off, it'll be no problem to pass a virus onto it. There's a function on the latest Apple devices called USB restricted mode. It's an innovative defense mechanism which prohibits data exchange during charging through a USB port. Android models face greater risks, though they're also packed with their own software, which bans unapproved access to your data. If you're using a device with the latest version of operational system, in theory, there shouldn't be much danger. But still, if you need to charge it urgently in a public place, don't use a public USB port. You never know what cyber criminals will come up with next. So if the only way to have guaranteed protection from fraud is to avoid using USB chargers in public places, what can you do if your smartphone has a low battery? Well, bring a common charger and plug it in a common outlet. This is less convenient since there aren't as many of them in airports, but it's definitely safe. Another option is to charge a power bank through a USB port and then charge your smartphone with it. If that's still not enough, you could buy a special USB cable, which lets you charge the device but doesn't allow the exchange of data. You can also follow suit with the White House and build a special mobile security gadget for less than $30. It's called a Juice Jack Defender and will protect you from identity theft and malware while charging. There's also a completely different kind of danger when it comes to charging your smartphone through a USB cable. The device can simply burn out from voltage swell. The construction of an outlet in a public place is very simple. It's a plug directly connected to wires. If it's having issues and is connected to your smartphone, it can destroy it. And yet, despite the huge risks, even people who should know better get careless. At an RSA conference in San Francisco, which is devoted to cybersecurity, one of the companies put a charging station at their stand and offered USB cables to the participants. They did this to see how many people would use public chargers. The result was 80%, and none of them asked about security measures. They probably felt safe because they were at a cybersecurity conference, but now you know that you should always keep an eye out. An even crazier thing happened at DEF CON. Dozens of experts on information security fell into a trap themselves. They started charging their devices from a free charge station. They all eventually got the message not to plug in their personal gadgets to some dubious boxes, especially at this particular conference. So what about you? Do you charge your gadgets using public USB spots? Do you ever think that they could be unsafe? Before you run to charge the power bank, here's some more advice on how to protect your security. Install multi-layered control to all of your online bills. Create 12 symbol passwords. It shouldn't be your mother's maiden name, the last four numbers of your passport number, your birthday, or your address. These are the easiest passwords to crack for people with bad intentions. Don't use the same login and password for all your accounts. Change passwords every 6 months. And don't share the details of every single step you make on social media. Remember that in doing so, you make it easier for actual thieves to trace your route and rob your house while you're on a business trip or vacation. It's just like you're leaving the door unlocked to let them in. Each time you sit in the airport and feel like sharing with your friends that you're going somewhere, think twice. What picture are you going to show, and how could it harm you? Don't ever show your boarding pass on social media. At first glance, it looks like the only information you can get from it is a passenger name and the boarding reference. But someone will be able to get access to your personal info on the airline site, where passport data, email, and your loyalty program number are kept. With this info, they could cancel your return ticket and your vacation will be ruined. Your personal data could also be used to make a false credit request. If you still don't feel like the vacation has started until you take a traditional picture of your passport with a boarding pass, delete the ticket number, booking reference, and any data about your flight from the picture before posting it. The same rule applies for barcodes, which can be used with bad intentions too. My rule of thumb? Imagine Charlie the cybercriminal is looking over your shoulder, ready to pounce on any morsel you drop. Your goal?
Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to Module 7 of our Chief Information Security Officers training. We'll be looking at how organizations can build a cybersecurity resilient team. So now, as an organization, it's not necessary that you have to employ all these people who will be discussing their role. You could outsource some of all these roles. However, it is good you understand what should be your team when it comes to cybersecurity. Who should be part of that team so that you can be able to protect the digital assets you have. So let's get started. So the first on the list is the CISO. Now, the CISO has to be the head of cybersecurity and reports to top management. A good example, he has to have direct contact with the CEO. And what it does is to oversee the entire cybersecurity strategy, policies, and implementation plan of the institution. And where you find this CISO should be at the executive level because it has to have direct access to top management. So the person must have some form of management position. And it's always ideal the CISO reports to top management. Now, the key responsibilities of the CISO would be first to define the cybersecurity goals, set security policies, make sure the budget for cybersecurity is robust, and communicate with the board, letting them know what are the threats and vulnerabilities the institution is facing. Also, the CISO should lead continuous strategic oversight in terms of compliance and crisis management, and also make sure that the business goals are aligned with regulatory requirements. So these are the key responsibilities the CISO should have as part of their job function. Now, when you want to take up the role of a CISO, there are some skills you should have. One is strategic leadership. Two is IT security. Also on that list, you have risk management, regulatory framework knowledge, and good communication skill. So the CISO is top on the list. Next, we have the Security Operations Center Manager. So every institution is supposed to have like a Security Operations Center, but some industries are trying to centralize theirs. So let's assume you have yours. You should have someone managing that center. Now, the manager of that center should have some skills. One of those skills is incident management. The person also should also have network security knowledge threat analysis, and good communication. So, what will be the person's responsibility? One is to provide operational management of security measures in terms of detecting threats, analyzing threats, making sure that vulnerabilities are not exploited when it comes to the center, and also having real-time threat detection and report this daily to the organization. And if it's a ecosystem, report it to all partnering institutions. Also, the manager is supposed to work closely with the IT team and also the incident response team, because the center has to be managed in a way that everybody who is involved can be able to get prompt updates. So the security operation manager will monitor and respond to security events real time. So that is very key. It has to be real time. So we also have the security analyst. Now, for you to be a security analyst, some of the skills you will need is network and endpoint security. You also need to be analytical, because for you to detect threats, vulnerabilities, you have to be very smart because of social engineering, phishing, and other form of cyber crime. So you must be able to analyze, and your responsibilities will be targeted on having real-time analysis of any security event that can be exploited. So you should be able to investigate and escalate incidents timely. So where you find people with this skill and this knowledge would be most especially in the security operations center, where they do the day-to-day monitoring. Also, what they do will be to investigate and respond to threats. So the SOC team also needs to work with IT for there to be any form of effective implementation. The person cannot work in isolation. He or she will also need IT support. Then we have the incident response specialist. Now, the incident response specialist is very important because the person has to be specialized in responding to incidents. Now, there's a big gap between a data breach and a security incident. A security incident may not necessarily lead to data breach if it is treated immediately. So the incident response specialists have to be grounded on any form of potential cyber threat, be it a ransomware attack or man in the middle attack, because the person has to be able to investigate data breaches to know the root causes, not guessing this might be the cause. The person should be smart enough to know the root cause of that security incident to be able to mitigate the impact. And the incident response specialists will work closely with the security operations center manager, most especially when they have multiple teams. So they can now do that remotely. So, what are the skills? You must have forensic analysis capability, you must have malware analysis capability, you must have crisis management skill, because you can't be panicking when your institution is facing a cyber threat. You have to have technical skills in cyber security. So, your responsibility will include minimizing the impact of security incidents so they don't escalate to a blown out data breach, and you should be able to respond to any form of threat that the institution will face, and also work with the legal team so that you can give them the true picture of what is occurring, so they can know when to give out threat statements and possible litigations they would face due to that security incident. So we also have the risk manager. Now, the risk manager, we have to manage the cybersecurity processes, looking at it from the risk perspective. And the risk manager should work across departments, because every department is peculiar with its own risk. Take, for example, a department like IT will be facing risk related to cyber threats, while that of HR maybe facing insider threats, people within the HR department collecting employees' record and sharing it. So the risk manager has to work across various departments because every department will be facing different form of risk based on the nature of data they handle on a day-to-day basis. And that's why this module tries to let organization know that you have to look at your cybersecurity holistically. Don't say, okay, we have a CISO. The CISO cannot wear everybody's cap, and the CISO needs support. So you need to look at it. Okay, how do we make the CISO more effective by trying to delegate or outsource some of these responsibilities so that the institution is resilient enough. So in terms of skills of the risk manager, risk assessment is top. Regulatory compliance is also very key. Analytical skill is very important, and understanding the business process. Because if the person you have as your risk manager does not understand your business process, the person may not work as it should be in terms of performance, because you need to know the organization to be able to profess solutions that are realistic. So you don't bring up solutions that cannot be implemented in that ecosystem. So key responsibilities will be conducting risk assessment, developing risk mitigation plan, working with compliance to educate the top management on the risk the organization should envisage in the day-to-day business operation, and ensuring that the cybersecurity effort align with risk management processes and procedures. So the risk manager is very, very important. So we have the compliance officer. I think this is very easy for any company in Nigeria because almost every company in Nigeria has a compliance officer. So the compliance officer would need a sound knowledge on regulatory policies, regulatory requirements. Also, the compliance officer should know how to carry out auditing and also know how to document processes, and most importantly have analytical skills, because the key responsibilities would be that the person track regulatory changes. Take, for example, a particular regulation issued by a government institution, like institution like the CBN is updated. The compliance officer should have that information timely, right? And also, the compliance officer should be able to know how to do audits, internal audits, because most times you may outsource your external audit, but internally, the compliance officer should know what to do, and monitoring the organization compliance with laid down procedures, especially as it relates with their regulators, so that the institution can meet all regulatory obligations without facing any sanction. So, where will this compliance officer find himself? The person most likely will find himself working with either the risk management team, with the legal team, or the CISO. And the compliance officer must make sure that the policies of the organization align with regulatory requirements. So, compliance officer, thumbs up to you. So, we have the security architect. This is not very common when you look at the Nigeria ecosystem, but security architects are very key because they design the institution security infrastructure and framework in a way that it aligns with the network security, the application security, and data protection needs are carried along. Because you may have an application that is very good with a good graphic user interface, but it has vulnerabilities or risk associated with it. So it is your security architect that will work with IT and your development team to ensure that every process that you are carrying out does not have any form of regulatory issues. So, one thing the person has to have is knowledge of threat modeling, very important. Security standard like your ISO 2701. The person has to be sound in system design. Yes, very important, system design, and also cryptographic protocols for security purposes. So responsibilities will be designing security systems, engaging in new system design, system update, system upgrade, integration. When you're having a core banking application, the security architect is very important. If you are migrating your core banking application, you need to bring people like this to be able to look at it holistically so that your users don't have issues while downloading the app and using it on the day-to-day need. So just as I said, they will have to work with IT very closely. And they also have to implement the architecture for this network security, application security to be robust enough. So, security architect, you should look at that. I know many organizations don't factor this in their IT infrastructure, but it's very important. Then we'll go to penetration tester. Very, very important also. In Nigeria, many people are beginning to value ethical hackers because what they do is before the bad guy come, they've told you what you should fix. So they detect bugs and advise you to fix it before people with ulterior motive take advantage of it. So what do they really do? They test security of applications, of systems, so that if there are threats, if there are vulnerabilities, before they are exploited, the organization fix those things. So they just identify vulnerabilities before it's taken advantage of. So they must also work with the Security Operations Center manager, with the IT team, and incident response team. Because for you to play as a penetration tester, you must have knowledge of ethical hacking, you must have knowledge of network and web security, and vulnerability assessment. Your key responsibilities will be helping the organization find and fix vulnerabilities. I know people who get paid to detect vulnerabilities on applications. So if they can detect five, that's good. So for you to be able to play here, you have to know that it's a very competitive field. You have to know everything about IT, security patches, and you should be able to collaborate because most times you'll be working remotely. So it's not a must, you must go physically to carry out some of all these tests. So you must be able to work with remote tools, right? Remote tools that are secured so that you don't get your client into trouble. So you also need to conduct regular penetration tests based on regulatory requirements. And before systems are launched, you must be able to detect any vulnerability that can be taken advantage of by hackers. Then we have cybersecurity trainers. Now, when an employee is onboarded, one of the things this employee should know is basics of cybersecurity. So, as a cybersecurity trainer, it's your job to educate employees on the do's and don'ts of using the internet, using technology enabled by internet, so that they are aware. Take, for example, you are a cybersecurity trainer, you should have basic communication skill. How can you simplify that complex topic, cybersecurity, that somebody who studied hotel management or hasn't been to any formal education will understand it? So you have to know how to develop training curriculums. You need to know how to develop training resources, training materials. You must also have cybersecurity knowledge because for you to pass out that knowledge, you must still have the skill set in cybersecurity. Because your responsibility is to raise awareness, consciousness, so that people reduce that human error that can be exploited. And you should be working closely with the human resource department to bring out training plans when it comes to cybersecurity for employees, so that irrespective of the cadre of the employee, there are things the person are already used to when it comes to security of IT enabled devices. Take, for example, what should a password look like? Should they have uppercase, lowercase, special symbols? Are employees allowed to share their password with co-workers? So these are little things as a cybersecurity trainer you should be able to educate people on. So we have the data protection officer. Now, the DPO is really gaining ground when it comes to the Nigeria ecosystem because by law, every organization should have at least one data protection officer. And the DPO should have knowledge in IT, knowledge in law, knowledge in compliance. The DPO should also be someone who pays attention to detail, because you are talking about customers' record, customer data. How can you minimize error when it comes to inputting this record? And how would you educate your organization to implement policies and procedures that would ensure that data collected will not be altered, destroyed, or misused? So the DPO oversees the data protection procedures of the organization. However, the DPO must work closely with the compliance, legal, and IT department. So now, within your institution, you may not have all these roles broken down because it's expensive, no doubt. But this is what you should look at. So, as a CISO, you may have been wearing all this cap. So, what you need to advise your organization is, how can we be more efficient? Can we outsource some of these roles, and can we employ new people to fit these roles? Because the world is evolving, and if you don't change as the world is moving, you may find yourself left behind. It is no longer an IT manager role to do all this. You have to break it so that people can be able to effectively manage data and protect digital assets. So we're going to take questions just to be sure that what we've learned today is understood. And for those on the WhatsApp group, if you are yet to join the WhatsApp group, I'm going to post the link. And the materials will be dropped on the WhatsApp group after the training. We'll also try as much as possible to get participants to access these materials that we are using for our training. Don't forget, the training is going to last from now till Friday, because we are trying to finish the training. It's a 12 module training, and today we just talked about module 7. So by Friday, we'll be done with the training, and you'll be also guided on how to take your exams and get your certificate. So for everyone who have participated from module 1 up to date, we really appreciate you. Please hang on with us till we get up to module 12. Then you can get your certificate after taking your exam, and we will be more cybersecurity knowledgeable. So let's go to the quiz. Thank you very much. So the first question is, who is primarily responsible for ensuring data privacy compliance within an organization? So you can just drop the option. We have option A, option B, option C, and D. So who is primarily responsible for ensuring data privacy compliance within an organization? You can drop your answer on the comment section, and we'll review if that is correct. So I have option B. Okay, the B's are coming in. So let's see how true it is. So it's true. It's the data protection officer. Thank you very much. So the next question is, which department does a data protection officer most commonly collaborate with? Which department does a DPO, that's the data protection officer, most commonly collaborate with? So we have option A, option B, option C, and D. Okay, we have option A. Let's see how true it is. It's true. Compliance, legal, and IT. So who is primarily responsible for educating employees on cybersecurity best practices in an organization? We have option A, B, C, and D. Okay. Okay. So the answer is actually C, the cybersecurity trainer. Yes, that's the person's role. So which tool might a risk manager use to evaluate the likelihood and impact of risk? Which tool might a risk manager use to evaluate the likelihood and impact of risk? So we have option A, option B, option C, and option D. Okay. I'm seeing funny options. I'm seeing D, I'm seeing C, I'm seeing B. So let's find out. So the answer is 2, the risk assessment matrix. So thank you everyone who have been with us. Just as I said, we'll continue tomorrow with module 8. Module 8 will be talking about insider threat. So same time, we'll be here tomorrow to talk about insider threat. Our goal is very simple, to get you educated on cybersecurity. And we've been doing this since module 1. And by Friday, we'll be done with all modules. Then you'll be able to take your exams and get your certificate. And you'll be told on the procedures to get your certificate. So thank you everyone who have been with us so far. And the materials will be dropped on the WhatsApp group. I will paste the WhatsApp group once again so that for those who are here to join, and they can join. So the materials will be dropped on the WhatsApp group so you can download it and study. Please keep these materials because when you want to take your exams, they will come handy. Thank you and enjoy the rest of your day.